Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kim Dorman. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Princeton Public Library. I think many of you are familiar with Crowdcast, but still I want to take a moment just to familiarize those who aren't. We have a chat, which will close during the actual presentation, but leave open for a couple of minutes in case people are having some tech issues. We have the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions while we're doing the presentation, you can just ask your question in that feature and we will be sure to answer it or try to answer it at the end of the presentation. We also have a call to action button, the green button right below the pictures. So if you want more information about the League of Women Voters, you can just click that link and you'll be brought right there. This is the third of us and final of a series that we've been happy to do with the League of Women Voters. And Cindy Gordon, who's are you the chair or the director?
I'm the communications director for the local league. And
okay, the communications director for the local League of Women Voters of the Greater Princeton area, I think it is. Cindy Gordon is here to talk more about how and where to vote.
Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming out to our third and final, as Kim says, series on voting in 2020. This is such a different year for voting that we needed 3 different sessions to explain it to you. But we're happy to answer questions today, and we're focused on the how and where and a little bit of why to vote in this election coming up. Next slide, please. Or let's guess, Kim, will you start the slides? Okay, and I think she's making some adjustments and you'll be able to see that a little bit bigger. So here we go. As I said, we're here to do this with the library, and we really appreciate the library's partnership on this event. It's been great. First, and in our next slide, I want to tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. I hope you've heard our name before. We're celebrating our 100th anniversary this year. We were founded in 1920, and we are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. Our real purpose is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. That's how we got started. When the 19th Amendment was passed 100 years ago, we were able to start our organization to help people, primarily women, understand how to use this new power that they had, the power to vote. And so today, we continue to live up to this legacy that we've inherited. And I would like to say today, we have many members across the United States, and our members include women and men dedicated to safeguarding democracy. May I have the next slide, please? I want to share with you a few thoughts on why vote. And I don't know if my head is blocking that on everybody's screen, but I will tell you anyhow that the first quote we're going to give you comes from Abraham Lincoln. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on the fire and burn their behinds, then they will just have to sit on their blisters. Abraham Lincoln. And next we have another one from Theodore Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt. Oops, sorry, wrong Roosevelt. Today, nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote except the American people themselves. And the only way they could do this is by not voting. And next, Martin Luther King says, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Our next quote, bad officials are elected by good citizens who don't vote. George Jean Nathan. John Lewis. I can't read it, but I'm sorry. Kim, is there a way you can drop my picture so we could read the whole slide? All right, I still can't read it. We have a very inspirational quote from John Lewis,
That's
which
okay. I just unmuted myself. I can't unmute and show screens at the same time. So hopefully my dog won't start barking.
okay. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have. John Lewis. Someone struggled for your right to vote. Use it. Susan B. Anthony, especially appropriate this centennial year. And finally, we have a humorous quote to close out. If you don't vote, you lose the right to complain. George Carlin. Okay, so those are just a few thoughts that people have about voting. And now we're going to focus on you voting in this very strange election year, 2020. As you know, due to COVID-19, this year, everyone received a ballot in the mail, and our election is being conducted primarily by mail-in ballots. Now, as of last week, I checked this morning, I don't have a more recent number, but we have more than 1 million New Jerseyans have voted by mail as of October 15th. That turns out to be about 17% of the 6 million or so registered voters in the state of New Jersey. So let's take a look now and see what is it that everybody needs to know about how and where to cast your vote. Next slide. Okay, everyone, as I just mentioned, has been sent a ballot if they are an active registered voter in the state of New Jersey. I believe that most people have received their ballots by now. Pretty sure people in Mercer County have them. So you should have your ballot by now. So when you take a look at it, you look at what's on the ballot. Most of the talk, of course, is about the presidential campaign, but also on your ballot, you'll see a number of other offices. You have to vote for Senate, House of Representatives, and there are local elections which vary from town to town. They could be anything from school board, which is true in Princeton, and fire department, which is true where I live in Plainsboro. The fire commissioners are being elected. But it's important to note that you have two sides of your ballot. Every ballot is a little bit different depending on the town you live in. But if you look at most of them, you'll see the people who are running for office are on the front. Flip it over, make sure you look at the other side of your ballot, because that's where you'll find the public questions almost all the time. And you may find some other offices too. They may not be able to fit everything on the front. So the public questions, these are questions that are up for referenda that have been voted by the legislature to appear for you, the voter, to decide. And this year, we have 3 public questions. The first one is a constitutional amendment to legalize marijuana. The second one is a question about property tax deduction and exemption for peacetime veterans. That means those veterans who didn't actually serve in a war. And the third question is about a constitutional amendment to change the legislative redistricting schedule if the census data is delayed. Now, we're not going to talk about the details of these things now because they're fairly complex, but we will give you some resources to help you get more information on them if you would like. So now let's take a look at the ballot. Let's look at this one. It's a good one. Thank you. You will not get a sample ballot in the mail. In previous years you did, but because you get an actual ballot in the mail. But this is an example of an online ballot that it was posted on the website of the Middlesex County Board of Elections, and it's actually for South Brunswick. As I said, they're a little bit different everywhere, but for the most part, they'll look sort of like this. On the front, you'll see all the candidates, and you see how they're listed with the candidates. And again, even this format may be a little bit different where you live, but in general, they look like this. Candidates mostly on the front. And on the back of this particular one, they do have some local offices up at the top. And then at the bottom, you see the 3 public questions. Now, when you get it in the mail, you'll usually have quite a bit of information available to you in addition to the actual ballot. And we're going to talk about the envelopes and things like that. But you should look for what will talk about the public questions, there's usually an explanatory section that goes into it in more detail than it's not just asking a question, it's giving you background on each of the questions. It's been prepared by the state. It's done not in a partisan manner. It doesn't come from one side or another to try to influence your vote. It's an attempt to explain it in a way that you can understand. And it's also in the ballots that I've seen in Mercer, Middlesex, and probably most of the state. All of that information is available in several different languages. So you should be able to find explanatory information and find it in different languages. Okay, let's look at the next slide. If you want to know more about what's on your ballot, you can go to a couple different places. I would like to strongly recommend Vote411.org. This is run by the League of Women Voters. It is nonpartisan information. They call it election information. You need it, and it's truly one-stop shopping. You can go there to get information on registering to vote. It's too late now to register, but you can get information on what's on the ballot and questions. They have nice checklists for example, for students. If it's your first time voting, it tells you the kinds of things you should think about. But what I really like about 411 is that this is a project that Leagues of Women Voters do across the country. Here at the Princeton area, we do, actually we help with a couple of different areas in New Jersey, and we ask the candidates questions, and they often respond to the questions, and you'll see that on Vote 411. But you'll find out where your polling place is, what the hours are, and you will definitely see the information about the public questions. So I think that's a helpful thing. Now, before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to also say, because it's national, it's a great resource if you have a friend who lives in another state. I have a lot of friends in Florida. Someone said to me, I really don't know, what's on the ballot other than the presidential election. I said, just go to 411 and you type in your zip code and it gives you all the information. And it's now also available in Spanish. So good resource. Next, please. Filling out what's on the ballot. This is how we look at the mail ballots. It's pretty complicated, as you can see, but if you follow the instructions, they're all there. So we'll just quickly go through the first step. You actually fill out the ballot. You have to fill in the little circle completely. You have to use a black or blue pen. In step 2, you have to sign the ballot. Very, very important. The signature is one of the ways they want to make sure that this is a valid submission when it's received at your election office. In step 3, you put your ballot inside the first envelope and you seal it. And then you go to step 4, and then you put the inner envelope inside the outer envelope. Step 5 shows you, make sure that you are putting it so that the address part faces where it's supposed to, how to do that. And then step 6, you can cast your ballot by mailing it in several ways or getting it in somebody's hands in many ways. You can take it to the United States Post Office. You can drop it at a secure Dropbox, or you can hand deliver it to a Board of Elections office. If you live in Mercer County, if you live in Princeton and Mercer County or anywhere in Mercer County, the Board of Elections is located on Parkside Avenue. I have the address I'll get for you at the end. Parkside Avenue in Ewing Township. The used to be, and it's there still is a building in Trenton, but right now they're using the Ewing office for the receipt of ballots if you wish to hand deliver your ballot. Now, these are ways of doing the mail-in ballots, and we'll talk a bit later about you can also go to the polls on election day. So let's go to the next slide where we have some security features. Okay, we have this first. When you do all of those things.
Oh, sorry, can I skip a slide?
Yes, I think so.
No, it goes.
Okay, is the other? It doesn't really matter. We will go through both of them. But this is kind of interesting. Sometimes mail-in ballots are rejected, and I just want to see. I did the math to tell you what this number was, but in 2019, last year's general election, In Mercer County, there were 70,528 ballots cast. 661 of them were rejected. And that comes out to 0.009%. It's a small percent, but of course you don't want it to be you. So why did they reject ballots? These are the most, based on a survey that went over several years. This wasn't specific to Princeton, but in general, in elections from 2015 to 2019, I think in New Jersey, ballots were rejected for these reasons, in order. First of all, if the certificate was not signed. You remember when I showed you that you must sign. The signature is really critical in the whole part of making sure all the records match, and to make it secure. We want to make sure it's your vote. The second one is that the ballots were received after the polls closed. Now, this year, again, because things are kind of different, you're going to have the opportunity, if you postmark a ballot and you take it to the post office, they will accept it up to November 10th. So the election is November 3rd. If you have a ballot that's gone to the post office by November 3rd, but for some reason they don't get it at the Board of Elections till the 5th or 7th or even up till the 10th, they will still accept it. But this is if you miss the deadline, it will be rejected. Another reason it's rejected is that certificate, the part where you sign and it says do not detach. If you detach it and don't send it, it will be rejected. The signature doesn't match. That's a problem. We'll talk about it in a second. Incomplete bearer portion. The bearer portion is a little section of the ballot. You would use the bearer portion if you were helping someone else fill out their ballot. And this is pretty common. Maybe you have a relative or a friend who is older or not feeling well and you wish to help them. You can help them, but you must have that bearer portion of the ballot filled out. And then you can, after you assist, they fill out the ballot, you assist them, put it in the envelope. You can take that to one of the three places we just mentioned, the Board of Elections, the Secure Dropbox, or the United States Postal Service. You can only do 3 total. You can only be a bearer for 3 other people, and you cannot take it to the poll on election day for some reason. But this is a reason why it might be rejected if you didn't fill that out completely, but you were trying to do it for someone else. Or if the ballot is not enclosed. You're going to vote, make sure you put the ballot in the envelope. So those are the reasons why the mail-in ballots are rejected. Okay, Kim, I think you can go. I don't know if it's forward or backward. This is good. Now, in the past, particularly in the primary, there were some problems where people were rejected, their ballots were rejected, perhaps because a signature didn't match. And this was an election, I don't know if you remember our primary in June, when there were a lot of mail-in ballots, not quite as many as there are going to be in the general, but quite a few. And then a lot of them were rejected. So, why does your handwriting change? I think over time, or somebody's ill, handwriting change, or perhaps one of the other problems that we mentioned occurs. This year, we have something called the Ballot Cure Act. And this is legal action. This is a result of legal action that was taken by the League of Women Voters and other organizations in the state to fix this problem, because it seemed to be unfair that maybe your signature changed, you didn't realize it, they got it and they reject it, and you have no chance to fix it. Now we can cure it. So what will happen is, if there's a rejection, you're notified within 24 hours and you're given a chance to fix it so that your vote can count. Okay. Now, we said this briefly, I'll say it again, that you can mail in your ballot at the United States Post Office. You can drop it at a secure Dropbox, and there are many boxes all over every county in the state. That actually, by law, when the governor set up an executive order making changes to this election, required counties to put these secure Dropboxes up in different locations in every county. Or you can deliver it, and this is the one where in Mercer County, you would deliver it to, I think it's 1440 Parkside Avenue, but I'll check the number for you. It's Parkside Avenue in Ewing Township. So that's the opportunity. And here is my friend Roger. who is dropping off his ballot at the Princeton Dropbox. You may have seen this one. It's right by the municipal building, 400 Witherspoon Street. It's in front of the building. It faces to Witherspoon Street. You can see the building here behind it. Now, these drop boxes, and there are others, but this is the Princeton one. I think it's probably the closest. It's definitely the closest to the library, but depending on where you live, you might want to check and see if there's more that are closer to you. So the drop boxes are all very secure. You put them in the slot like you see Roger doing here, and you can be fairly confident that it will be a safe, secure drop because they're all under 24-hour video surveillance. They're all picked up at least once a day. And if they get filled up, they pick it up a couple of times a day. And they have a system where the people who pick up the ballots, they have a bipartisan team of people who are trained to pick up the ballots. They're put in secure sacks, I believe, and they're taken to the Board of Election and they're logged in very carefully. So there's a very detailed process. I probably missed a few of the steps, in fact, to get your votes counted from these secure drop boxes.
I think last time that people have to do it in their county. So the close.
Yes. Oh, what a good point that is. You don't have to drop it. If you live in Princeton, you don't have to do it in Princeton, but you have to do it in Mercer County. So you could go to Lawrence, but you can't go to South Brunswick, which is in Middlesex County. You can't go, even if you live close to one of the adjacent counties, it must be within your county. Excellent point. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about information, misinformation, and disinformation. Studies have been done to look at the amount of mail and email and social media, and have definitely determined that there is more misinformation and disinformation this year by far than there has been in previous years. I like this quote, which comes from someone at Common Cause, who says, "We're concerned with content that impacts people's faith in the legitimacy of our system, or somehow implies that some methods of voting are less secure than others when there is no evidence that's true." So I think this really puts us all on notice that we need to be careful when we read stuff, when we get tweets or Facebook posts. We really need to be careful about it. I'd like to show you in the next few slides a couple of ways to do that. Oh my, I don't know if I can read this. Okay, here we go. So this is the first one about fact checking. It's about how to spot disinformation. Now, I'll just make a quick note that misinformation would be a mistake. If I tell you it was 1440 Parkside Avenue and it was really 1840 Parkside Avenue, that was misinformation. It was a mistake. I didn't really mean to give you bad info. Disinformation, however, is really deliberately giving you bad information. So when you do this kind of fact checking for yourself, think about these things. Consider the source. I mean, sometimes you can tell when you look at the URL that it has, Jamie's Backyard as opposed to Verizon or something like that. Check the date. Sometimes old information has been posted and the facts may have changed since then. So it's worth checking the date. You need to cross-check your information. Different people may have different sources of information. So maybe you're reading something, from the New York Times, and although, you can probably trust the New York Times, I do, you might want to check the Washington Post, or maybe you want to check, another kind of a source. You should read past the headline. The headlines can sometimes be different from the stories. They're usually I'm not sure this is still true, but in the old days, when we had print newspapers, it was very often that the headlines were written by the editor, the stories were written by the writer, and they weren't the same. I'm not sure if that's still true in online media, but it's very possible that the headline is written to entice you into the story and may be misleading and different from the body of the story. And finally, You should question emotionally charged content. There's really, I think, a lot of use of words that are meant to grab you emotionally, and they're sensationalistic, and really seeing something like that, to me, would make me think, I wonder if this isn't a legitimate story or not. So let's move on to another kind of source of bad information on social media. So how do you deal with it? You probably get this. I know I get a lot of things on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm sure some of them are not accurate. So if you see something and you don't know if it's true, think before you click or retweet or share. Just think about it. Do you know that it's true or not? If you do have good information, or maybe you're reading something and you know that it's wrong, maybe you've gone to a fact-checking site and you know that it's wrong, make a correction, share accurate information. I think this next one is very, very good advice. Don't engage publicly. If someone has bad information, just you tell them privately, or ask them to take it down. But engaging in a debate, probably not a good idea. And then do report and block things that are very bad, or that are inaccurate, or being put up in a negative and unfortunate way. So block the users, report them if you wish to report them to the people who run your social media outlet, but block them so that they don't continue to share disinformation. So how do you know if what you're reading is accurate or inaccurate? Well, a couple ways. This section on fact checking is taken from the Princeton Public Library's election website, which is really, really good. It's good in many ways, and I would urge you to just go take a look at it. It has many, many excellent sections. This is just one. So there's a couple of places that this website recommends: publicintegrity.org, factcheck.org, and PolitiFact, not PolitiFacts with an X, note that, PolitiFact.com. Now, these are three nonpartisan organizations, nonprofit, nonpartisan, and they're basically fact-checking organizations that are operated by people, and they are focused on political actions right now, probably all the time. And another place, once again, 411.org, which I mentioned before, but another good place to go for reliable information. Okay. Now, here are a couple of emails, and when we finish at the very end, I'll put these into the question or the chat window, so you can maybe copy them a little more easily than you can from here. But I'll just mention these three. First, the New Jersey Division of Elections has been very, very good. They have been very aggressive in providing information about voting this year, and they recognize how complicated things are. So pretty much any question you have, if you start with this URL, vote.nj.gov, you will be able to get down to whatever piece of it that you need to get to. It also includes links that will get you to your county. If you want to go to the county, you can drill down and you say, okay, I'm in Mercer, I'm in Princeton. Where are my drop boxes? Where are my polling places? This first link is excellent for many things. The second one, very interesting. This is a system to track your ballot. It's also done through the New Jersey government, and they have set up something called the New Jersey Voter Information System. The Voter Information System allows you to register, and you register by going online. It will ask you to identify yourself by something like your Social Security number, or your driver's license number, or a voter identification number. Now, you might have a voter identification number if you still have a ballot. If you've received a ballot in the mail and haven't returned it, you will see on that a barcode above your name and address. That is your voter identification number. And under the barcode, you'll see the numbers. So these are ways of identifying and verifying that you are who you say you are. So you sign up using this system, and then you're part of this New Jersey voter information system. Once you're in, you can see your voting history, your past history. It's mail-in ballots. If you had previously requested an absentee ballot, your entire voter history is visible to you because you have to sign in and get a password and it's secure. But the best part is it will show you when a ballot was mailed to you, and when you return your ballot, you can go on and it will say received. So a lot of my friends have found this. We've been having games like one of us will put it in the secure Dropbox and another goes to the post office and we see whose ballot gets accepted first. But whatever reason, I think it gives you some real peace of mind when you have a mail-in ballot to know that the election officials have received your ballot. So very good thing. And then, and particularly as we go on, if there are problems or if you have questions, this is the New Jersey Voter Protection Hotline, which is a phone number. And they're particularly active, I think, around Election Day. So those are all good resources. Again, I'll put them in the chat box later when we get finished. All right. So you may recognize this picture or pictures like it of election night back in the old days when we had a sort of normal election system. So what would happen, everybody, you vote on election day, and then that night we watch the news to see who wins the election. Probably not going to happen this year. Definitely not going to happen this year. But the League of Women Voters and many people are really urging everyone to be patient. Think about what's going on. The volume, there's so many more mail-in ballots than there ever were, and this just takes more processing time. The ballots, as I said before, if you're postmarked by November 3rd, you can get them up through November 10th. So they're really not going to have, this is for New Jersey, by the way, they're really not going to have the results until they get all of the votes in by November 10th. They will have provisional ballots. If you actually go to a polling place, we didn't talk about this very much, but I can answer any questions if you haven't. The provisional ballots will be done if you go to a polling place. A provisional ballot is a paper ballot. So when you mail in a ballot that you received in the mail, your signature, the voter ID, there are a couple of different ways of verifying your identity. If you use a paper ballot, if you go to your polling place on November 3rd and you fill out a paper ballot, they will then, after that is taken by the election officials, and they'll take them at the end of the day, they're then going to verify them to make sure you haven't voted twice. I mean, that's one of the safeguards that's built into the system. First, the mail-in ballots will be counted, and they'll have that little voter ID bar card will say, yes, Cindy voted. And then if Cindy tries to vote again on election day at the polls, it will be rejected because you can't vote twice. So this will take a long time to do anything. And also, if you go to the polls on November 3rd, you are handicapped in any way, you are allowed to use an ADA conforming voting machine. And then there's a process to verify that, but that too will take a little bit longer. So all in all, there's extended times on pretty much everything. And really think about this. It's just a fact of life. It's the logistics. It does not mean if you don't get a result by midnight or when you go to bed or something on election night, it doesn't mean that there's fraud going on. It doesn't mean that the system has failed. It just means it's a different kind of election, and it's going to take a long time to get all the results. So in sum, many things going on this year that are different. I hope that maybe you've learned something here today that you didn't know. And we would urge you to make a plan, figure out how you're going to vote, where you're going to vote. Vote early, which means like now, right now, go out and vote as soon as you can. And please vote safely. And when you go, if you choose to go to the polls, which you can on election day, just be sure that you follow the normal COVID-19 precautions that you would follow anywhere else. you need to wear a mask, you need to distance by 6 feet. The CDC has recommended that in order to stay safe, you should avoid crowds and being in contact with other people in close groups for a long period of time. And they basically say, if you can do something other than go to the polls, that probably is the best plan for most people. But if you can't, for whatever reason, you can go to the polls. They suggest you wash your hands before and after you vote, bring hand sanitizer, safe distancing, bring your own pen so you don't have to use a pen that may have been used by other people. And just in general, be sure that you are doing all of the precautions that we have, I think, all learned that we need to do these days. So that's it. Those are the things that I have to say. In general, I hope we've covered as much as you need to know. And now we're open for questions. Does anyone have any questions that they would like us to answer?
Jim asked, I don't know, I'm still up, sorry. Jim asked, anyone been successful in tracking the ballot after dropping it in a Dropbox? My wife and I both we don't recognize her username or email or driver's license. What's up with that?
Well, when I was trying to sign up for that, they didn't recognize my those two things either, but I was able to take my ballot and get the voter ID off of the ballot. That was the only way I was able to sign up for that voter information system. So if you're able to do that, if you still have the ballot and you have the voter ID number, if not, I would recommend that you call the county clerk's office and ask them to help you they provide the voter ID number in some way. I hope that answered the question.
Sorry, Jean also noted that it's my understanding you can give your social security number.
Yes, I think I think the choices are social security number, driver's license number, or voter ID number. I may be missing something, but I'm pretty sure those were the choices. And I tried the social security thing, and it wouldn't accept me. And finally, I had the ballot there, and I used that voter ID number, and that worked for me.
So the trick is, if you haven't already voted, make note of your voter ID number, because that might be the one that works best.
Yes.
Well, it looks like those are all the questions we have. Cindy, thank you so much for all the work that you've put in to help spread good information and help people identify misinformation and disinformation. And do you have any closing notes that you'd like to offer?
Well, what I just wanted to do was to drop these things into a few resources that we discussed into the chat window. There they are, in case anybody wants to be able to save any of them. These are the ones that we mentioned during the discussion. And I would say, if anybody has any further questions, really the first one, the New Jersey Division of Elections, the vote.nj.gov or vote411.org are really the best places to go.
You may have to press enter, Cindy, because I'm not seeing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go. We also want to thank Jean Turner, who was also with the League of Women Voters and tried valiantly to try and help Cindy today with the presentation, but we weren't able to get her on. But she has stayed and is helping in the background. So thank you, Jean.
Thank you. And yes, and Jean helped with the preparation of the whole presentation. She's been my partner all along. So thank you, Jean.
Well, thank you, Cindy. Did it work for you? So, Jim, Cindy, if you want to reiterate what you had said, sorry.
Did it work for me?
But only using the voter ID.
The only way that I was able to sign up, I had to try 3 times, and it didn't accept my driver's license, did not accept my social security number, but it did accept my voter ID, which was on the ballot. And I don't think I have it here. I mean, I voted, but I kept the envelope, and I don't think it's on the envelope. I think it's on the part that I had to turn in when I voted, so I don't have it here. But I wonder if I have it here.
Another option you said is to call the voter information hotline. Is that correct?
I would call the county, not the state, but call your county If you're in Mercer County, call Mercer County, and you can find all the information. If you start with that New Jersey number and then go through, it will click and tell you, do you live in Mercer? Do you live in, wherever? And they will have a phone number that you can call. You might be able to email. And I will tell you, they're very busy. So
sorry, Jim, just to reiterate, what Cindy has tried to say a couple of times is that there are 4 options of information that you can put in. 3 of them, her driver's license and a social security number, and I can't remember the other one, didn't work. But what did work and what she was able to finally get the information she was looking for was by using the voter ID number, which comes on your ballot. So you were able to, it worked for you using that number.
And Jim, I don't know if you live in Mercer County, Jim, but, and he said, did it work for me? It worked for me when I used the voter ID number. And I see now that Jean has helpfully posted a couple of pieces of information. First of all, the Mercer Voter Hotline, 609-278-2719, and then a URL, Mercer Votes at, it's not a URL, it's
Email address.
It's an email address, mercervotes@mercercounty.org. So Jim, if you're a Mercer County resident, I would try, and you don't have your ballot, I would try to either call or write to those numbers. And if you're not a Mercer County resident, same thing is true, go to whatever county you are, start with the state, and they have the list of every county, and you can do that, and good luck. It's well worth it, I think, to get into their system. And if you have to call them, I think it's still worth taking the time to do that, because you will be able to track your ballot. And I find most people feel this is a very satisfying thing. You're not just dropping your ballot off in a box. You're being able to see what happened to it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you've been having trouble, but hopefully with those other resources, you can get some joy in the end.
Yeah. So that concludes it for me, and I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Princeton area. And I think if you click down there where it says get help, no, I'm sorry, where it says LWV Princeton, you can get more information about us. And we welcome you to join us or to follow our website for future events. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Jean. Thank you, League of Women Voters of the Greater Princeton area. And thank you all for coming.